everyone, welcome to StormCrows TV, the channel where two lit chicks talk about all things reading and writing. I'm Allegra.
I'm Emily, and today we are going to be continuing our read-along series of A Song of Ice and Fire by George R. R. Martin. We are beginning with Book 1, A Game of Thrones.
So if you're just joining us and you want to start at the beginning of a book, we have links posted in the description below for the previous chapters. Today we're also doubling up and doing 6 chapters instead of our usual 3, because I don't know if you've heard, but a lot of us are staying home and doing some extra reading lately.
Yeah, so there's lots to talk about. But anyway, the way this usually works is Allegra is the Game of Thrones guru, it is known, and I am the sweet summer child of the series. So as this is my first time reading it, I will be giving newbie summaries of the readings.
Normally she recaps the whole thing, all 3 chapters at once, but since we're doing 6 chapters, we're going to go each chapter at a time. So would you like to start us off with recapping Jon 3?
Okay, so the wall sucks. Tyrion was right. It's cold as shit, and Jon doesn't have that Stark superhuman ability of never freezing. Also, Benjen's a dick now, so there's that. But don't worry, Jon, he's probably dead. Jon shows us he's definitely not a Stark when, after getting bullied for being the smartest, strongest kid in class, he accepts that maybe he's being a punk, and it's not impressive to beat up the kids who've never held a sword. More good news is Bran's not dead. This sparks Jolly Jon into feeling super gracious, so he offers to help his bully get better at swords. But pisses off Thorne in the process because he's also a dick.
My note here is God bless Donald Noy for calling Jon on his BS and taking him aside and actually doing some parenting and some role model business and going, hey, this is why all the kids hate you. Don't do this anymore.
Props to him, because you wouldn't think a man with one arm is super intimidating, but that whole, like, if you don't take your problems out of here, you're gonna make them my problems, and you don't want that. You're right. So, we'll stop now.
I love the backstory on Noy that he used to be the blacksmith for House Baratheon. He fought in the rebellion with House Baratheon, and then he lost his arm in a battle. Noy had a whole life before coming to the Watch. And I appreciate that Jon has woken up enough to kind of realize and resent that concept.
He's also cognizant enough to be like, well, this is the life that my father wanted for me. But he knew what to expect. He knew what the wall was like. And yet this is where he meant to send me anyway. But speaking of how Noy fought with Baratheon, it's interesting because later on you find out other people fought in that same war/battle that are here, and they were on the other side. Look, either your head goes on a pike or you get to go serve over there against people who you probably tried to kill a few decades ago.
Alistair Thorne is probably so much of a dick because he was on the losing side.
Speaking of, like, the wall being a very different place, you know, there's this complete 180 with Benjen. In the previous chapters where we see him, he was warm, and the nephews loved him. Now he's a completely colder person. When Jon went up and said, I want to go on this rangery expedition that you're leading, he was like, no, you didn't earn it. And also things are different. Like, I love your dad, but these are my brothers.
I think you could get into an argument as to whether or not Benjen and Ned completely conned Jon. And I also think maybe something is going on with Benjen, like maybe he really, really doesn't want Jon to go north of that wall yet. There's a certain tinfoil theory about what Benjen might know about Jon.
Regardless of, like, the whining, I do like that Jon recognizes he's also being a snob. All these victories he thought he was winning weren't really victories. You may be a bastard, but you're a High Lord's bastard. And so you were given privileges and opportunities that these boys didn't have. When you come and you beat them up with the sword, you got to remember, they haven't held one before they got here.
Jon's been at least holding a wooden training sword since he was 7 and been trained by professional knights and the best in the north, going up against some pig boy. Like,
yeah. But ultimately, it doesn't take long for him to go, oh, you're right. Okay, I need to be better. Yeah, it shows that Jon's willing to accept criticism and take his licks and keep going. Ignoring all the tinfoil theories that have so far come up, that alone would make me go, are you sure Ned's your dad? Because you're taking those hits pretty well and moving on.
Although I will point out, he is kind of Ned's kid because he's completely miserable. You could just leave, but he doesn't. He just sticks with it because he doesn't want to go back and inconvenience freaking Catelyn and Rob, and he doesn't know where else he could go. And I'm like, you know full well Rob would welcome you back.
I didn't realize he couldn't just leave. I thought like he was already committed. You're stuck. And it was you who pointed out like, no, he hasn't taken the oath yet. He hasn't officially taken the black. And I'm like, wait, then what's his problem? Just get up and go. Swear yourself somewhere else or something. Like, I'm sure someone will take you.
I think he just doesn't want to fail. Like, it's that fear of like, well, I started this, I can't possibly stop it because he's 14 and an idiot.
Yeah, I mean, we're all idiots at 14.
And speaking of idiots, Eddard is next.
Okay, so naive Ned feels out of place in the South. Because he is. His first council meeting goes less than well, and by that I mean he finds out that Robert really is bad at being king. The overflowing treasury the Mad King left behind is now 6 million dragons in debt because Rob hates numbers and boring shit, but likes parties and spending coin. The council may not be as bad as Robert said, but Littlefinger is a little skeevy. Or a lot skeevy. He drags Ned to a brothel and he almost stabs the dude because he thinks he called his wife a whore. But surprise, Kat is there, and insists that she's not an idiot after she told Littlefinger everything. Also, good on Ned for not buying the dark magic Varys plot. Spies exist, Kat. Anyway, he sends her home without saying goodbye to the girls because children are stupid and can't be trusted. They probably learned that from their mom. So I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
How is Robert Baratheon not dead? I know I've asked how is he still the king, but literally, how is no one in that council just stabbed him for the greater good?
It was his foster dad, Jon Arryn, his brother, Stannis, and his other brother, Renly. So, I mean, like, half the council is on his side. Barristan is loyal. He's the head of the King's Guard, and he's a stone-cold badass. I think Robert's just been well protected. With Cersei as queen, it profited the Lannisters more for him to stay being king than to kill him.
The silence will remain in the video because that was just my exasperation. Like, Baratheon should not be king. And I know by the end he will not be, but my God, I'm just amazed that it's lasted this long. Like, it's just sheerly through not writing the, like, prologue that Baratheon has miraculously held on this long. If George R. R. Martin was forced to sit down and write all the years between the Trident and now, he would not even know how to keep this man king.
The burden of it falls on Jon Arryn. Martin has talked about how he loves having the heroes of the story be dead when the story starts. So heroes in this story really are, a lot of them are dead. Arthur Dayne, Rhaegar Targaryen,
Yeah.
Jon Arryn. And Jon Arryn's been running the realm and just, letting Littlefinger find the money, because Littlefinger's good at finding the money, and borrowing from the Lannisters.
He does have this really magical ability, and I don't know how, of making me love characters that don't actually exist in the novel. Like, Rhaegar's dead, but I love him. Jon Arryn's dead, but I respect him.
It's because so many of the POV characters we do read, even people who were their enemies, idolize certain people. And so you get this idea. It's sort of like built into this book is a little bit of concept of ancestor worship or something almost, because you get this veneration of people who are already gone.
I think this chapter made me love Rhaegar more because I'm like, if he was king, maybe they wouldn't be in debt. Maybe they'd have a king that was actively participating in the council meetings, who cared about the numbers, who didn't just say, hey, you know what, we're in debt, let's have a tournament. Robert is supremely selfish. And, they argue like the Mad King was so selfish and he killed all these people, and maybe he was, but there was at least some sort of modicum of understanding his role because he left a surplus behind.
Aerys was definitely mad, definitely crazy, definitely evil a bit, but he did know how to rule. And Robert never knew how to rule. He wasn't prepared for it. He was barely prepared to run Storm's End in the Stormlands. Instead of being held accountable or forced to learn, he just handed it off to other people and partied his way through the last 13, 14 years.
He deserves to lose it. I'm not even sad about that. And I mean, yeah, Littlefinger's a creep, but I'm kind of digging it.
He's a useful creep. I will give him that.
I like his sass. Like, up in Winterfell, everyone kissed Ned's ass. Down here, Littlefinger's like, oh, you're an idiot. I'm gonna say your face. Like, you're an idiot, and what are you gonna do?
Martin kind of parallels different stuff in each chapter as you're going. So you get Jon walking in, being entitled and bratty and throwing his weight around. And then you walk in and get Ned being a complete different kind of idiot, but still completely unprepared, not understanding the situation he's walking into whatsoever. Jon had Donald Noy to knock some sense into him. Nobody's here to knock sense into Ned. The closest you get's Littlefinger, and he's not listening to him.
Tyrion and Noy had a better delivery. Jon was more receptive to them, whereas Ned, why would he be receptive to the Littlefinger?
But that's the problem. Ned isn't receptive to anybody, though. Like, he dismisses Varys as being, the perfumed, powdery, shady eunuch. He dismisses Littlefinger for being a pimp. Renly is young, like Robert, and kind of stupid. And, like, he just has this whole list of reasons he's not listening to any of these people on the council. But maybe you should, because they are on the council.
He thinks everyone around him is a moron, and it just turns out he's married to the moron. I don't hate Catelyn in this chapter, but I don't think she's very smart.
She has that same lack of situational awareness that Ned kind of does. She wants to go see the girls, and he points out, kids talk, and we need your presence here to be secret. Never mind that clearly it's not secret anymore. Varys already knows. Littlefinger already knows. There's no point in being secret now. Then the funny thing is he gives her that, outlines the strategy for the defense of the North and everything just off the top of his head, and it's actually solid strategy. It's like, Ned is a good tactician. He just can't politic for the life of him. Like, maybe that's him and Robert's problem. Like, both of them. Like, they could win a war, but they don't know what to do when they have won the war.
Well, it's a good thing that they can win a war, because their lack of politicking will definitely lead to many. My whole thing is, I'm really upset because Catelyn gets this letter from Lysa, and it's, hey, I'm paranoid enough about this to write it in code, so even your maester can't read it. Be very discreet about it. And Catelyn's like, oh, we must not tell a soul, except for you, and you, and you, and you, and this guy, and now this. And it's like, you told Littlefinger. He's not even a Stark. Like, it was one thing to tell Robb and Theon Greyjoy. Okay, sure, he was your foster brother way back when, but you haven't seen this guy in how long, and then you burned his letters and never wrote back to him and ignored him.
It's a great strategy. It won't bite them. No.
No, because so far Littlefinger has been the paragon of trust. Like, Ned didn't almost try to stab him walking in, but now it's like, oh, I'm so glad that that's her foster brother. I'm like, dude, it's not even a question of will he stab you in the back. It's just strategy. The more people who know something, the more likely it is going to get around.
Littlefinger's patron was Jon Arryn, so maybe there's a logic there of, well, maybe he would also want to avenge him. But at the other hand, like, Ned himself has called this place a den of snakes. Why would you trust anything?
Right, and I'm not saying that Ned needs to have a crystal ball and go, oh, you're probably going to stab me in the back later. I'm saying Ned needs to go, I don't care if you're going to stab me in the back later. You're not one of mine. I'm not going to trust you with secrets.
The knowledge that Lysa warned you, that puts Lysa at risk. Why would you tell that to anyone?
I think in the past, Ned would have been able to go up to Robert and say, hey, I need to talk to you, and would have been able to trust him with saying, this is what I've heard. Maybe you shouldn't trust your wife. But, going off that last line in the chapter, Robert's not the same Robert.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. The whole thing about Ned realizing maybe he shouldn't have killed Lady. And realizing that Robert's not Robert anymore.
Like, no shit, you shouldn't have killed Lady. I'm sorry, I'm mad. It's like, why would... Okay, no, you're dumb.
But the line that stuck out to me with that is Sansa pleading as Lyanna had once. Because I feel like a horrible broken promise to his sister might be why he's so obsessed with honor. On to the other side of the coin, which is Tyrion.
Is a giant. So at least that's what Mr. Aemon thinks. He also manages to piss off Thorne, but that doesn't seem all that hard to do at this point. Benjen's probably still dead, and Lord Commander Mormont begs Tyrion to make the king believe winter really is coming before even more of them die. Tyrion gives his word, but doesn't think that'll actually do much because they don't really listen. And after that merry talk, the tiniest of Lannisters treks up the wall to say goodbye to Jon because they're bros now. What an unlikely friendship they have formed. He agrees to convey messages to the Starks as he goes back through Winterfell. Jon tells him he'll go find Benjen, who's totally dead, Jon, let it go. And Tyrion leaves us with a nice cheery thought of, but who'll go get you? Because they're bros. I think Tyrion's a giant. I love that line. It was so nice. Even Tyrion didn't know what to do with that.
Possibly a nice little bit of foreshadowing about how big Tyrion's gonna be in the history books. I'm glad that Tyrion also understands that Jon's completely screwed.
There's no winning in his situation. Even if he does quit, like, because we were just saying, he could always leave. It's like, well, what would he be going back to? There's nothing for this kid.
He just needs a home and a hug, but no.
It's just... And you know he's screwed because whatever they said, like, winter's coming a million times now, like... I'm gathering that this is just more than a metaphor because they talk about it like it's a metaphor. They describe it as, you know, you were born in summer and winter's coming, but it's like it also seems kind of literal. Like it's gonna snow a lot and there's actually gonna be frozen people who hate the heat. So is this a metaphor or is it literal or is it both? And oh my gosh, this just sounds awful.
This isn't gonna end well.
And it's not at all a social comment about how people ignore the things that aren't in front of them.
You know, a part of this influence really is climate change and the issues of a world where the world itself is going to be changing and the society is just ignoring it to have their continued squabbling with each other.
But at least through all of this misery, like there is that friendship between Jon and Tyrion, and they both realize, like, we are the outcast.
I mean, in a kinder world, Tyrion and Jon could have been friends, and maybe Jon could have left with Tyrion and just been in Tyrion's household.
Because Ned would have loved that.
I would have loved it.
I think Jon should do it anyway.
After your dad dumps you off with a bunch of crazy uncles in a frozen wasteland to be, like, treated like crap and eat bad food and freeze forever, I think you're allowed to side with his enemies.
Yeah, I was about to say, you know, that would have been a story I would have read. Like, Jon going, hey, Tyrion, you know what? Fuck this. Fuck my dad. Can I serve you? I can be your bodyguard or whatever.
Right? Can me and my puppy come and be your friends? The puppy won't try to eat you anymore once we're serving you.
I think one of the last things I want to say about this chapter is I like Lord Commander Mormont, and I believe him. You know, there's this gravitas about him. But man, it must really suck to be a Mormont right now, because between him at the wall and the other one exiled, that just seems like wasting a lot of Mormont.
Did you catch on to how the two are related?
Yes. One is daddy.
Yes.
And not
He took the black because his son ran. My question there was, when I was just reading this time, I noticed that Jeor is so concerned about Jon visiting Winterfell. Like, he doesn't want to let Tyrion take Jon back to Winterfell because possibly he doesn't think the kid will come back. But Benjen visits Winterfell, and honestly, why are you so concerned? Is it just because he's a trained sword and they just need every decent, halfway educated person they can get?
It is a little weird, but in a lot of ways I also understand it. He needs to get used to this way of life, and maybe Benjen can go because he's already taken the black and he's accepted that this is his family now. He has no illusions that this is his life, and maybe Benjen wasn't allowed at first to go see them.
I also wonder why Benjen is stuck at the wall. Just as a side note, there was only 2 kids left, and Ned could have found him a holdfast or something to be lord of. The ages work out that Benjen would have taken the black probably toward the end of the rebellion or right after. Anyway, let's continue on because there are no answers to this line of questions. And on to Arya.
Well, with her, at least somebody in House Stark knows when something is their fault. Arya may be an annoying sister, but she owns when she messed up. Her dad comes to talk to her. Turns out Ned is a great dad, that he loves her, but bad in that he tells her not to accept responsibility for things that are clearly her mistake. This is all encapsulated perfectly by scolding her for owning a weapon and then arranging for her to train with a weapon. Mixed signals much, Dad? At least, like John, Arya knows she can accept advice and try to grow. Maybe Mom can take notes.
So, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I was actually really impressed with her for not being a brat. It was, I got Lady killed. I got my friend killed. I asked him to play. I shouldn't have done this. And it was very big of her. I actually like her slightly better because she was able to recognize her failings. She didn't accept it all because, yeah, Joffrey did lie, but she accepted where she messed up. She knew what triggered things. And so I was really upset with Ned for saying, oh no, that's not your fault. It's like, well, okay, she didn't cut the boy's face in half, but if she had just stayed where she was supposed to stay, the chain of events wouldn't have kicked off.
I get wanting to comfort her and be like, you know, I can't take that you're crying and everything. But no, he really just completely like excuses her from all culpability. And it's like, no, she really needs to because she is mostly feral. And if you're going to have any chance of getting her to understand that she has a role to play for the safety of the rest of the household. But no, it's fine.
Well, it also shows where, Robert was like, you punish your kid, I punish mine. Well, it's like, neither of you punished your kid. Arya got away with murder, and Sansa was the one who paid for it. And so I really don't blame Sansa when it was like, hey, this is going to be a really great event. No one's going to want you there. It's like, yeah, sick burn, Sansa. And I think she's entitled to that anger. So when Ned's sitting there going, oh, they just need to get over it, it's like, well, do they?
My recap on Twitter, I was basically like, her and Sansa are screaming and throwing things and at each other's throats and snapping and snarling. And he's like, I want you two to act like sisters. And I'm like, they are. As far as I remember, sisters who are close in age with vastly different temperaments, that they're pretty much acting like sisters.
Sisters fight. That's just how it goes. But I guarantee you that if my sister got my dog killed, I would not talk to her for at least a year. Speaking of her being feral, by the way, there is no way teaching her how to use a sword can go wrong. It really bothers me how bad Ned is at politics and being a father, because it's your fault she's feral, and now you're enabling it to get worse. You are indulging her. And what sucks is you see in Arya this potential to take criticism because, the very first thing she does after her conversation with her father, she apologizes to her septa. So she's a sponge. She's ready to take in whatever critique you give her, but what you're giving her is license to continue being spoiled.
We probably needed more Stark adults, and really the only Stark adult around to deal with any of the kids is Ned, because Benjen's at the ball, and Lyanna's dead, and all their cousins are gone, I guess. And he talks about the wolf blood that Bran and Lyanna had, and he just kind of says that as that's the reason he's just going to let Bran climb trees and not try to deal with anything, and it's the reason he's going to just try to channel Arya's into sword lessons. It's this wild streak that's in them that you just have to accept or something. If you're going to channel Arya's into the sword lessons, you have to also have a price of like, you can have the sword lessons as long as you do all the other things.
It's irresponsible. And Ned himself acts like a child. I mean, you talk about Ned is the only Stark adult. Now, he walked into that room at the beginning of Arya's chapter in his own kind of tantrum. And I'm so upset I'm not even going to sit and have dinner. I'm not hungry. And he does exactly what Arya does. He storms to his room. And so can you blame the child for doing what her dad does?
Not really, no.
She acts what she sees.
In the midst of all of that, he just outlined to his wife off the top of his head a way to defend the North in case they turn into a civil war and everything. But they're in a hostile city. He knows his allies are weeks of sailing away. And that's assuming, the Manderleys could come straight down. The rest of them will take months. He doesn't hire any extra swords or any extra household guards. especially after that meeting you just had with Kat and you're outlining trying to defend the North. Like, you should want more guards for the Tower of the Hand and for your people. It's fine. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah, nothing at this point has happened that would make the Lannisters not like you, Ned. Nothing within the last 5 or 6 chapters.
Okay, let's move on to Dany. I can't take any more Starks. I'm sorry.
Thank God. Daenerys, she is no queen. She is a Khaleesi. And damn does she own it now. From struggling to acclimate to enjoying the lifestyle of the Dothraki, Daenerys grows a whole hell of a lot. She even stands up to her brother, realizing he's a pitiful punk who will never be king. Taking his horse away from him and forcing him to walk is a cherry on top of a fuck you sundae, and that was a long time coming. More than that, it looks like she may be winning over Drogo, so that's fun. Also, the dragon eggs are being weird, and I'm sure that has nothing to do with the story her handmaid told her, or the fact that she's now pregnant. Congratulations, Dany.
Yeah, them dragon dreams. I like that we start off and like she's just on a downward fucking spiral, like straight into the ground. And you get those dragon dreams, and then suddenly she wakes up one day and she can sort of bear life again.
She's not just burying life. It's like, huh, you know what? I own it. I own you, and I own you, and I'm in charge.
She just wakes up one day and she's like, I have hit rock bottom and I have bounced. Let's go.
Slam dunk, man. I love her. At this point, Dany is my favorite.
Yeah, she's my favorite too. Well, and Sansa, but Sansa doesn't get cool for another book or so.
I was about to say, I've only read one of Sansa. I don't hate her yet. People keep telling me I will, but through this book. But no. Dany is definitely a breath of fresh air after reading the ridiculousness of the Starks.
And she finally notices her brother can't do anything right. Finally.
Yeah, I love that she sees him as pitiful. Like, you know, he's been throwing his weight around, and honestly, like, the only person who believed it was her. Everyone else around him knows that he can't do it, that he won't do it. He's really just this weak little brat. And finally, she realizes, I have more power than you. And I think that point of her showing mercy to him, it's like, it really showed, like, you know, as Ned said, she has his balls in her hand. Only it's true for her. Making him walk was just great. I loved that.
Yeah, I especially love that it wasn't that, like, you know, in Westeros it wouldn't have been that big of a deal, but she knew in the Dothraki culture exactly what she was doing to him, and he was too dumb to realize it.
From that exchange, really one of the things, aside from girl power and you go, Daenerys, it made me kind of side-eye Jorah, because there he is swearing allegiance to Viserys. And when she was like, hey, you swore to him, he's like, yeah, but, like, he means nothing, so what does that make me? It's like, well, okay, so you made an empty swear. So if you can do that, what does that say about you?
True, but I mean, also look at what Viserys had just ordered him to do, which was to take on 3 Dothraki screamers against a Khaleesi.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying Jorah didn't do the right thing. But, like, if he had said, well, I followed you because you're the queen and this is the culture we live in, that's fine. But the way he explained it was, oh, your brother's nothing.
Because, I mean, think about it. Especially if you're in Jorah's shoes, not to completely defend him because he is a snake, but he does actually have a point in that he's been with them since the Mance. So he's seen Viserys be an asshole to Dany. He's seen Viserys mistreat other people. He's actually been in on... I'm pretty sure there's a reveal about something that happened in Illyrio's Manse before they left that I don't think has happened yet, so I'm not going to say it. So he swore his oath to Viserys when they met at that party at Khal Drogo's mansion, and then he's been with him since. So at what point are you like, yeah, no, that oath I swore, we're gonna back out of that real fast?
Yeah.
It's like Jaime with the Mad King. I mean, he was loyal up until a certain point and went, I think we've crossed a line here.
That's fair.
And, Viserys, you just saw him almost try to take out his sister, screaming. And yeah, are you really going to have any respect left for somebody who's trying to beat up their 13-year-old sister?
No. Also, how far would he have gotten? Like, to your point, how far would he have gotten? Yeah, I'm gonna go kill Khal Drogo's wife in front of 3 of his men.
Or just even hit her, and then, like, getting ordered to take on the 3 mounted Dothraki screamers for Koss. No, that's a good way to die.
Yeah, and it's like, to get that whip around Viserys the way he did, it's like, they know what they're doing. Just, yeah, just chill. Let them get their way.
Yeah, Dany's bodyguards they're not a joke. Like, that is not Khal Drogo's B team.
I like that he likes her.
It is a relief. Like, if they had an unhappy marriage, this would be so much worse to read.
It's nice to see a good thing happening.
Dany's life has been such hell that, like, any little good thing, which is, her and Drogo finally talking to one another, having some kind of communication, aside from her nightly duty. Yeah. Cough, cough. But I think it also is interesting that it's when she takes control of things and the dragon eggs are getting warmer, that's when she gets pregnant.
Yeah, I had this moment, like, there was an epiphany for me where it was like, so are the dragons solar powered? Like, they're coming awake under the sun? Is that what's going on? But then I was like, oh, I get it. And it came after, like, the handmaid explained how the moon and the sun and the eggs. And I was like, she's the moon. That's why Drogo did it. She's silver and her horse is silver and she's the moon. And it went back to one of our previous videos where you're saying, like, Drogo has his own prophecies, the Dothraki have their own prophecies that they're trying to fulfill. I'm like, okay, and it clicked. And so it's, oh man, this is awesome. How everything's just starting to tie together.
I think Martin deliberately fools us because he uses a lot of the big tropey stuff with Drogo. Like, Drogo's just, call Conan the Barbarian when you first meet him. But especially in rereads, he is something else. He has his own prophecy. There's clearly something he is trying to do. He has his own goals, his own thoughts, his own motivations, and he's not a POV character, but you can very clearly read that he could very easily have been one. And while I'm talking about people close to Dany, I'm just gonna slam Benioff and Weiss again real quick. Like, I like Doria, and I really freaking hate what they did to her in the show because Doria deserved better. Like, I think she probably is a spy for Illyrio, but she does tell Dany the story, and she does try to help Dany with Drogo and learning how to do, intimate acts. And yeah, like, she and Dany have a friendship, and they really kind of sold that out in the show.
Yeah, but at least that's the only bad thing that Benioff and Weiss did.
Yep. Only bad thing, because everyone was blown up in a tragic accident after season 5. Okay, so let's go on to Bran.
Okay, so Bran is pissed because he can't fly. I feel you, Bran. Me too. He's also pissed because his nurse keeps trying to tell him stories, but he only wants to hear the scary stories about the others. Not creepy at all, because that won't be important later. Before she gets to the good part, Bran is called down because Tyrion Lannister wants to talk to him, so Hodor carries him just in time to witness Robb being a dick to Tyrion, telling him he isn't welcome. Tyrion rightfully is insulted, but he offers his help to Bran anyway, drawing up plans for a saddle so he can still ride. Why? Because he promised Jon, of course, and they're bros. And how is he thanked? By getting attacked by 3 direwolves. Bran's the one who calls them off because somehow the 7/8-year-old isn't the asshole? Robb offers his apologies in a place at Winterfell to Tyrion, but because Tyrion's not an idiot, he leaves. Dinner's awkward. Mostly because the Watchmen who eat with them tell Robb that Benjen's probably dead, which checks out based on the everything else going on. But then Bran says he's not. So I guess he's not? I don't know anymore. Because the next thing you know, Bran's being carried up the stairs by a big bro, and there's tears and hand holding, and Starks are weird.
Right. I love that this has basically gotten a little bit Lord of the Flies. The 3-year-old's running with wolves. Those are now his nanny / caregivers. The 7-year-old is trapped in bed being terrorized by the nurse telling scary stories. Or humored, I guess, because he's not really scared. And then the 13-year-old is running the world.
Oh my god, this is a Miyazaki movie, isn't it?
Right?
This is like Princess Mononoke and Howl's Moving Castle mixed with Castle in the Sky and Nazca of the... Oh my gosh, this is every Hayao Miyazaki movie in a blender.
Pretty much.
I'm kind of digging it.
Yep. So Old Nan is basically life goals. Just give her like a chicken leg hut and let her have her Baba Yaga.
Yeah, I like her because there he is trying to be like, you're old and you're ugly and I hate your stories and I hate your everything. And she's like, oh, you're sweet. You sweet summer child. And she's just unbothered. And I'm like, oh man, your skin must be as thick as Robert Baratheon's waist because, oh my god, you're just taking it in stride.
Well, like, Old Nan has been taking care of Starks for like so long, the Starks have forgotten how long she's been there. He cannot possibly be the first rude 7-year-old.
And yet they think Varys is the creepy magic one. No, Nan. Nan is creepy. I like the idea of running with wolves, though. Like, I understand why Bran was jealous and didn't want to hear stories, because Rickon's living his best life.
Our future feral king of the north.
What are you talking about? Robb's still alive.
And also, Bran's still alive. Everyone's still alive. It'll be fine.
What the hell, Robb? Like, I get that you don't really like the Lannisters now, but it's called being subtle. Like, they don't know that you suspect that you pushed Bran out a window or sent an assassin. Maybe play your cards closer to your chest instead of going, you know what would be fun? If you went and fucked yourself.
Well, Robb is a 14-year-old and his chief advisor is Theon Greyjoy. I don't... This was never gonna go well.
It's like, at this point, I feel worse for Tyrion than I do for Bran. I don't know what that says about me, but I'm just like, these awful people are bullying you because they don't know how to politic.
And he still gives them, like, the pattern for Bran's saddle, and because he made the promise to Jon, and...
But, like, just think it through. This guy is gonna go back home, and I know his family doesn't care about him, but he's still a Lannister. And Jaime cares about him. And so he's going to go back home and go, yeah, so those direwolves attacked me and Robb treated me like shit. And they're going to put together that, oh, maybe the Starks can't be trusted. So good move, Robb. Good move.
It'll be fine.
At least Robb eventually owns his mistake. So far that makes 2 out of 5 Starks being able to do that. But I like that this is like, it shows I'm going to give you an apology and Tyrion doesn't accept it. So I like that it shows like just because you're sorry and contrite doesn't mean that the other party is going to believe you.
And to the wolves like randomly attacking Tyrion, I kind of guess Grey Wind would be because Robb's already on high alert anti-Lannister feelings. Mm-hmm. And Rickon just doesn't like strangers, so Shaggy Dog could go off. But Summer going off was a little weird. But yeah, part of me wonders if the direwolves don't already know how their sister got killed.
But, good job for Bran. For understanding, like, no, we don't want Tyrion to die. And, like, for me as Robb, that would have been, like, a big, maybe I was wrong. And he does accept that, oh, you were nice to him. How shitty of me. But Bran still is showing as a pretty precocious 8-year-old, and I really still like the way Martin handles this POV, or this point of view.
Yeah, putting him up against Dany was really interesting. Dany starts off with dragon dreams, hitting rock bottom. But there's a motif of flying and flight and stuff with hers too. And then you get Bran, who enters in being angry he can't fly and he can't run with the wolves, and Dany's learning how to deal with freedom, and Bran only gets the possibility of maybe physical freedom in a horse, like partly in this. Whereas, so it's interesting to see like one theme next to the, you know, how he's connecting the chapters, even if it's not exactly plot connected.
Another thing I really liked is up until now, since Jon's chapter, like, oh yeah, Benjen's totally dead. He's dead. There's no way he's still alive. And then you get to this chapter, you're like, well, shit, is he? Because I don't know what kind of weird things that raven did to your forehead, but I kind of trust you know things now. So is he not dead? Oh my gosh, Jon's gonna go after him and die. Oh, what's gonna happen? What? So I like how there was that sort of it's sure he's dead, and now there's this whole children of the forest thing.
Yeah, Brandon says the children of the forest will help Benjen, and Yoren is the only person who doesn't start laughing at this concept. But Yoren is a ranger. He does know Benjen pretty well. Like, is Yoren the one who knows the children of the forest are actually out there somewhere?
Like, that's the one thing about the Starks that I think really confuses me, because they put so much stock and store into the wall and what it protects them from, and then they laugh at it at the same time. But it's like, these are obviously real things. This book's deep, and we're not even halfway through.
Yeah, and then of course you get the ending image of Robb carrying Bran up to his room by himself, and then the two of them like cuddling in the dark and crying.
That was so sad, because Robb at this point has been so happy.
Like, he's trying so hard.
I remember the very first time we saw Robb, I was telling Hugh, I love him. He's that happy-go-lucky guy. He was always smiling and joking around. In this chapter, he's so hard, and he's not smiling, and he's Lord Robb. And even Bran makes the distinction between Robb and Lord Robb. And it's like, he's cracking. He doesn't like this. He doesn't like not being happy.
And he's not prepared. I mean, again, with harping on the failure of parenting in Westeros, but my God, did the Starks not prepare their children? Like, Robb is 13. He's not engaged. He's not betrothed. 14, sorry. He's not engaged. He's not betrothed. He didn't foster anywhere. He hasn't... Ned has done... decently prepared him enough, I guess, to hobble by, because he can put on the Lord's face, and he is managing, and he is taking it seriously. But I feel like we lucked out more on Robb's temperament, making him take it seriously, than any amount of actual preparation done.
Right. I'm confused, though, because there are moments when Ned shows that he's a good leader. Like, there's moments you look at him and you're like, hey, yeah, that's pretty legit. Like, in that first chapter where it's like, if you have to take someone's head for this, you need to be the one willing to swing the sword, or you know, you can't be brave unless you're scared. Or like in that last chapter with Arya, where he was like, you need to know the men you lead, because they're like, don't make them die for a stranger. So every so often you have these gold nuggets from Ned, and you're like, that's really smart. But then everything else you see contradicts that.
What Martin really was going for with Ned was someone who really is good at warfare, knows how to lead men, doesn't know how to rule men. Because I think that's one of the themes of the books, is that conquest is easy, but ruling is hard.
And yeah, I feel like had it gone differently and Ned wound up with the crown over Robert, he still would have been a better king.
Oh, yeah.
And that says a lot about Robert.
Robert was like the worst choice ever. Yeah, he had the bloodline to do it, so it made sense to put him on the throne, but he's just so bad at this.
From what I understand, and again, I haven't really seen much of Stannis. I've only heard like one or two things, in passing from the characters, but I feel like Stannis would also be a better king.
He would have been. Stannis is not the kind of person you love, but Stannis would have been a better functional king. So next time, because it looks like we are all going to be at home a lot and reading a lot for the next foreseeable future, we're going to do another 6-chapter chunk. And you guys can join us for Eddard 5, Jon 4, Eddard 6. Yay, double dose. Cat 5, Sansa 2, and Eddard 7. Oh, I'm so sorry, Em.
I am still here. But I'm playing Mad World in my head and sobbing softly.
Look, at least if we get it all over in one big dose, that's 3 of his chapters gone that you don't have to go back to.
I'm in hell. I don't hate Ned. I just hate his choices. It's one of those, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
I feel that way with Ned Stark a lot.
Anyway, so yes, be sure to tune in next week. If you have any comments or questions about the 6 chapters we talked about today, please feel free to drop them down below. We love to hear from you guys. Respond to you as quickly as we can. Twitter's the best way to get a hold of us, but we do both have Instagrams. Our tags are underneath the whiteboard. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell for more notifications. So, yeah, just be safe, wash your hands, read science, you know, all that stuff. And good luck. Hope you find that toilet paper.
Stay safe, guys.